Films can be very hard to make. Sometimes they don't get off the ground, sometimes they flop, and sometimes they just take longer than expected. Like, way longer. There have been a few films, however, that have put the lives of the cast and crew on the line just for the sake of entertainment. Think the infamous Jackass, or the time those other two jackasses nearly started a war over a film. The subject of this video, however, is arguably the most dangerous film ever made, and most likely you've never heard of it.
Feel the power of the lion when he roars like thunder.
There's a very famous saying in show business that you wouldn't work with kids or animals. Well, 1981's Raw had both. And to make it a little bit more complicated, the kids were the children of the director, and the animals were over 100 untrained killing machines. Our story starts back in the 1960s when Tippi Hedren was in Mozambique, filming a suitably cheerily named film, Satan's Harvest. There she saw various cases of endangered animals and decided that she should do her bit and make a film highlighting their plight. Nice person, right? Well, this film would actually put her entire family and the cast and crew firmly on the endangered list. Knowing that wild animals would never work together unless they were raised together, Tippi and her husband Noel Marshall, of very slight fame for being executive producer on The Exorcist, decided to turn their California mansion into a wildlife park. Eventually the authorities found out that they were collecting dangerous animals in the middle of Los Angeles and were like, can you not? So they moved to a more rural area. They then proceeded to collect 71 lions, 26 tigers, 1 tiger, 9 black panthers, 10 pumas, 2 jaguars, 4 leopards, 2 elephants, 4 cranes, and 7 flamingos. They did, however, decide to pass on the 1 hippo they were offered, because, that would be dangerous. After living with the animals for several years, with their now adult children, Melanie from Tippi's first marriage and John and Jerry from Noel's, they finally embarked on shooting in 1976. The cast and crew were mostly made up of Noel and Tippi's family and friends, which meant there was little regulation on set. Instead of the around 260 animal handlers that would have been legally required on a unionised set, Raw had just a handful, most of whom they just used as extras. The shoot was scheduled to last 6 months, but would end up taking 5 years to finish. Most of the delays were due to the fact that they were filming with unsurprisingly uncooperative wild animals, and the finances of the project realised just how nuts the whole thing was and pulled their funding. This meant Noel and Tippi had to sell their assets like houses, of which they had like 4 so don't feel too bad for them, and land to continue making the film. Tippi even eventually sold the jacket that she wore when she starred in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, incidentally another dangerous film as she had to be hospitalised for a week when she was viciously attacked by ravens. Aside from the funding issues, your film was your standard lion family comedy film. But here's a quick rundown for those who haven't seen one. Some guy has a ranch in Africa and it's full of animals. His family come to see him. Some guys with European accents are like, I hate cats. There's a confrontation and the man has to leave the ranch. His family get on a bus from the airport. The mother and daughter have a really weird conversation about the parents' sex life. The man goes to the airport to collect his family. Meanwhile, the family have arrived and are doing the dumbest thing possible on a ranch filled with wild animals and opening every single window and door, not realising there are big cats out there. The cats come into the home and they do some Benny Hill routines, the Europeans come back and start shooting cats, the guy comes back and saves his family, watches the 2 poachers get eaten by lions, and everyone's happy. A couple of my other personal highlights are when the mother's fearing for her life, but still has the time to bang in a few zingers like,
oh God, look what the cat dragged in.
And other inspired dialogue like this.
Oh, Gary. Oh, why didn't you go with your... Why did you go with your friend? Oh.
But to be fair, you can't expect much when the film gives credit to the wild animals for writing and directing. Tippi's teenage daughter Melanie backed out right before they started shooting. They managed to replace her with her best friend, but she later decided that she wanted back in, a decision she would later massively regret. The replacement was fired and they reshot all the parts with Melanie. Now here comes the danger part. During the 11 years of production, there were at least 70 major injuries on set, some of which managed to make their way into the final cut of the film. From Tippi breaking her leg after being crushed by an elephant, Noel getting a hole bitten through his hand on the very first day of shooting, and even Melanie needing facial reconstruction surgery after one attack. Cinematographer Jan de Bont, in his first appearance in American cinema, and would go on to direct Speed nonetheless, got scalped by one of the lions and needed 220 stitches. Doron Corper, assistant director, was nearly killed when a bite landed just inches away from his jugular. John Marshall tells one story where his father was shooting a scene where he was bathing with a lion and it ended up dragging him out of the bath by his neck. Wanting to make sure the lion was disciplined for his behaviour, Noel gave chase, entirely naked and bleeding seriously from the neck. Unfortunately, this happened to be the day when several foreign investors were on set. They were apparently less than pleased. Despite all the literal blood, sweat and tears that went into making this movie, it ended up being a monumental flop, and I'm talking like RIPD level flop. I'm sorry, Ryan. Once the investors had pulled out and it was being self-funded, costs soared to $17 million. It might have had a chance of making this sum back if only it had secured a release in US cinemas. Instead, it was released internationally and ended up grossing just $2 million. However, the physical and monetary cost wasn't the last of it. John later recounted that his father wasn't very fair on poor Melanie. They each had safe words to get them out of a scene, but Noel apparently just didn't listen to when Melanie said them. This meant that in 1982, just a year after the film got its limited release, Tippy and Noel got divorced, citing that the film was one of the reasons for their split. There is a somewhat silver lining to this grey cloud. By 2015, 34 years later, the film had become so infamous that it finally achieved a theatrical release in America. Unfortunately, this was 5 years after Noel had died from, surprisingly, lion-unrelated causes. So if you want to check out the film that one critic called like watching a live-action Lion King while Mufasa holds a switchblade to your throat, then go ahead. Just be aware you might see some blood. Let me know what you think of the film if you do watch it in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. And as always, if you have been, thanks for watching.